welcome. It's Sarah, painting creator here, and I just thought that I might just have a play really. I've masked out a couple of Easter eggs. So there's one and there's another on my board. They're just small 10 centimetre square bits of paper really. And I thought I'd do 2 different designs just to encourage you and me into experimenting and exploring, as well as enjoying getting ready for Easter, because we're about halfway through Lent now. So this first one, I'm going to drop in some nice indigo straight from a palette. I'm going to let that texture of my paper come through. So it's just literally water, a little bit of indigo paint. And I've chosen indigo because I think it sort of sets off the egg really nicely. Because I can put a nice bright colour next to it and it'll just pop a little bit. It's also a nice colour for playing with different densities of pigment and with salt and the spritzer sprays, and it shows up the texture of the paper really nicely. This is just some pre-cut watercolour paper from Temu that I use on these. Oops, I might have just got a bit too much water there. A bit of thirsty brush, soak it up on a paper towel. And drop in a bit more pigment. So I'm just literally painting around the shape, dragging it out. And I'm just letting it fade out rather than going right to that edge. I'm just going to drop in some darker pigment around the bottom. They're just more concentrated, more straight from the palette. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of salt. So here's my little salt tub, just table salt. And whilst it's still damp, I'm just going to gently sprinkle some salt into that and see how it goes. Just a little bit. It's quite warm. We've got the heating on because it's heading towards the later afternoon and it's getting cold here, so that's where I'm at with this one. So I'm going to let that one dry for a little bit and we'll come back to it. And then we can move on to this one because that's on my board as well. So with this one I've put a bit more of a pattern on, and I'm just going to use some alizarin crimson because it's a beautiful colour. It's nice and translucent. A fair amount of water in there. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of my Purple Lake out of my Cotman watercolour set to just put a little bit of a darker undertone under this side. And I'm just going to strengthen up that alizarin crimson up on this side, and I'm going to let that dry. So So whilst that's drying, we can go back to this one. So look, you can see that the salt's started to work. So I'm going to grab my little spritzer bottle. I'm going to spray, if I can get it working, well, here it goes, into that wash a little bit, just to really break that wash background up. And I will just watch that for a little while. But I like how, I like the texture that we can create with this. Oh, sorry, my table's quite wobbly today. So I'm going to grab my hairdryer and I'm going to dry this little Easter egg, and then I'll be back with you. So I've had my hairdryer out, so this little one's dry, and this one has also dried. I love the texture. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit on some of this texture. It's got beautiful texture from the spray bottle and the salt working together. Indigo works beautifully. It's a base colour for that. So have fun. And then this one is just on the base. I hope that was not too harsh for you. So I'm going to just, with this one, I'm just going to grab my little mop brush again, and I'm going to put a nice bright contrast, a classic contrast, yellow on here. So quite creamy colour. On that part, and I'm going to make it quite greeny by adding some phthalo blue. And phthalo blue's got a deep green shade with it. I quite like the contrast of the types of blue, because the turquoise is a more the indigo is a more of a muted colour, whereas the phthalo blue is quite vibrant, as you can see. Just let it do its thing. I'm just going to leave that one. And then down to this one. So I'm still with my little brush, but I'm going to use some ultramarine and some yellow, some New Gamboge yellow, to mix up a little muted green. Or I might add a bit of phthalo into there to make a bit more vibrant. After that one that we've just used, that's quite nice. I'm just taking the excess off on my paper towel, and I'm just going to, as if this is growing, nice loose twiggy bits. Holding my brush halfway down, light pressure, varying the strokes. So this is my light colour. So I'm going to just add a little bit more ultramarine into that mix, and it'll go a little bit darker. Take the excess off of my paper towel. And then just darken this side a little bit. Looks like a little grass nest. And then I'm just going to do an ultramarine and burnt sienna mix together. Classic dark colour, goes into like a bluey grey. Take the excess off of my paper towel. I'm just going to drop in a little bit of a shadow colour into the bottom of there, and we're going to let that rest. I quite like how that's working. I'll just leave that. So still with that shadow colour, I'm just going to drop that into this bottom edge. And then guess what, we're going to dry them off. So I quite like how this sort of feels like it's got a nest in, so I'm going to do a similar idea with this one, but obviously with a much darker set of colours. So I'm starting with some burnt umber, and in there a little bit of burnt sienna as well, just to warm it up. And it's just the lighter tones to take the excess off on the paper towel. And I'm going to do the same and put a little nest of twigs for our Easter egg. Nice asymmetrical shapes. So into this brown, I'm just going to add a little bit of either Mars Black or Payne's Grey, depending what you've got on your palette. I'm putting a little bit of Payne's Grey in, just to darken it a little bit. But the indigo's still showing through, which I like. And I'm going to drop in some raw umber, which is a much lighter brown, but just to have a little bit more of a different tone around. And then finally, for the shadow colour, just mixed up a little bit of indigo and burnt umber. So a really nice dark. Hairdryer time again, I think. Okay, so here it is, it's dry, and we've basically got two different finishes using the same technique. So I'm just going to take off the masking fluid, so I'm using my little pick-up rubber for this. And if you wanted, you could go back in with another colour. Sorry, my table's very wobbly. You could go back in with another colour and do the dots a different colour, as long as the bottom layer is dry. That would work quite nicely. Or you could just glaze a colour over the top, so a really weak colour, but I quite like the brightness against the dark. And here we have the other one. I'll lift that off. Obviously, if you haven't got any masking fluid, you could use some wax, do a bit of wax resist, or you could just paint your entire egg one colour and go over it with a gel pen or a Posca pen and put your own patterns on afterwards, and that's fine too. So that's the basis of them. I'm just going to grab my my black ink pens. So this is a Faber-Castell permanent black fine liner. It's a 0.3, so a fine nib, and I'm just going to outline my Easter egg. And then I'm probably just going to do some little twiddly bits. So get that idea of a little nest going with the grass. It's just that free scribble. It's a free scribble, just thinking of the directions of travel, building up that shadow area. You're not outlining anything, you're just playing with a little bit of freedom and with a bit of ink. And again, you don't have to do this bit. It's your painting, you can do what you want. But I think that's quite pretty. I'm going to sign that one. I think that would make a really nice topper for an Easter card. And then we've got this one, which is a bit darker. I might get a brush pen for this one. So it's the same set, but a brush pen. It's got a bit of a darker tone with it. Sign that one, and then I'm just going to grab a little bit of a white gel pen for this one as well. So this is just a white gel pen. I'm just going to put a few highlighty marks into this little nest. So quite similar to the way that I was working with the other pen, but we're just making some lighter highlighty marks as well. And just let it dance across, it's fine. And you could just go around the edge of these little white blobbles if you want. Quite like them uneven personally. A little bit of a highlight on here. And there we are, two absolutely unique toppers for cards. They make really nice bookmarks, so let me just pan back out. So here's a little bookmark as well. Really nice little bookmarks. This has got that indigo background, and it's just, I just used a bit more time to build the depth up. but just have a play with what you've got, and they are really nice. So I hope you enjoyed that. Some really nice, quick, low energy but really pleasant ways of getting ready for Easter. So see you soon.